Welcome into Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho.
And this is Jacob Waters.
And we have a great show for you guys today. We are doing the Week 4 Power Rankings, and we're going to break it down a little bit differently, all right? So what we wanted to do coming into this show was every 3 to 4 weeks really take a look at where we're at in the season, all right? So 4 weeks from now, we're actually going to go back to this show and kind of take a look at who we thought were the bottom dwellers and who we thought were the top dwellers, all right? And it actually works out really well this week because our top 8 and our bottom 8 are exactly the same. They do differ a little bit as far as exact positioning, which I think is totally fair. I think if everyone who is watching this did a 1 to 32 power rankings of the teams, they'd be a little bit differently, but hopefully, I think realistically, the top 8 are going to be the same. All right, so that's what we're going to...
And same for the bottom 8.
And yeah. Exactly. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let's actually talk about the bottom 8 right now. We'll put it on the screen right now. This is our full list. This is our 1 to 32, and we're just going to go from there. But what we're going to focus on is the bottom 8. Actually, technically, yeah, bottom 8, ending with the Bears, starting with the Bears, ending with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is our bottom 8 in the NFL. And to be totally honest, we could do bottom 9, but it works better thematically if we do bottom 8 because
they're top 8.
Yeah, our Steelers honestly, the Steelers, Bears, and Dolphins are all unanimous for us as 9th, 8th, and 7th worst teams in the NFL, which is kind of interesting how that worked out. What are your thoughts on, honestly, I'll bring the Steelers into this conversation. What are your thoughts on those teams right now, and why do you think those are unanimous for both of us?
Yeah, so I'm glad you added the Steelers into it because I was going to have to mention them regardless. And I would say one of the reasons that they're at the bottom, and it's sad to say, it's the legacy of Ben Roethlisberger. I think it's a ship that has sailed too far gone. I think it's one of those things that we're sitting here watching, a lame duck season, if you will, where I do think that the Steelers have a lot of promise overall in that roster. A lot of young talent. TJ Watt, you have Devin Bush up top, Minka Fitzpatrick. I personally like to build in levels, and that defense is built well off of levels. And then when you look at the offense, they have Najee Harris, at the running back position. The biggest thing, I guess, where you can give Ben Roethlisberger a saving grace is that offensive line. They lost a lot of talent on that line. They lost their center, one of the Pouncey brothers, for years, who had been a dominant guy at that spot. Andrew Villanueva, who moved over to the Ravens now, and he's looking like exactly what he was well past his time.
Yeah.
But those pieces are hard to replace in a season. You can't do those things overnight, and the Steelers are struggling with that. And one of the ways that you can do that, though, is with a mobile quarterback. What's Ben Roethlisberger?
Not mobile.
He is the farthest thing from that you've seen. A lot of their passes, I think it was one of the things in last week's game was 60% of the passes fell beyond the first down line and shorter. He was check down here, he was dig route here, he was slant route here, he was RPO, boom, dish, bubble screen here. That's just kind of the way that they're having to run their offense. I don't know if Mike Tomlin believes in Ben Roethlisberger or if he doesn't believe in what's behind Ben Roethlisberger or not. But we have them at 24. Both of us have them at 24 solidified, and we're going to go down from there. I'm honestly going to flip it over to the Jags at 32 and say that I think this is the most surprising 32 that we have because out of all the bottom dwellers out there, you have the God-given grace that is Trevor Lawrence in thinking the promising talent that he was. And they put up a formidable fight on Thursday Night Football against a good Bengals team. I'm not going to sit here and write home about the Bengals and say that they're going to go deep into the playoffs or anything like that and fight, for anything of major contention. But I would say the Bengals are what are they off top? A mid-tier talent, maybe 16?
They're our unanimous 18. We actually both agree that they're the 18th best team.
18th best team.
But the way it worked out in our power rankings is because we combined our two grades. They actually ended up being the 17th team on our list, which is kind of interesting how that worked out.
That fits in right at middle tier, though, and that's exactly that. So they put up a good fight against this team, but we have Urban Meyer holding this team back. So I'm not going to really talk about all of the teams in between there. You have the Dolphins, Lions, Falcons, Jets, Giants, Texans. There's a lot of discrepancies going on here, a lot of bad football being played, but there are some teams that I will give a shout out to. The Lions giving a lot of fight. The Texans, even at times, I know they just got 40 hung on them but overall, they are, for roster top to bottom wise, giving a lot of fight in some of these games where I thought that there would just be no chance at all. So they're doing pretty good. I'm curious to see your thoughts, though, on the bottom 8.
Yeah, you look at the bottom 8, and I think this is the majority of the teams that are going to be in the top 10 drafting next year, the top 10 draft picks.
For sure.
I do think if I look at a team that maybe could be outside of our bottom 8, in a couple weeks, a team that could grow. I do look at the Bears and Dolphins as teams that, like, the Dolphins defense. I'm going to start with the Dolphins. The Dolphins defense is really good. Their offense is almost non-existent right now. Obviously, they do have a backup quarterback playing, but to be honest, before Tua got hurt, when he was in the lineup, it wasn't good. So I'm not sitting here saying that it's definitely going to get better once Tua gets back in the lineup, but I do think that defense is certainly worthy of pushing this team above a bottom 8 team in the NFL. But right now they're 1-3. They have looked really bad the past couple of weeks, and it's not fair to really put them any higher than where they're at. And obviously our unanimous 26th best team in the NFL. It's fair, I think. Bears, again, another team that, like, I think they are being held back. You mentioned the Jags being held back by their coach. I do think the Bears are being held back by their coach a little bit.
Matt Nagy.
It absolutely is. Now, and then I can flip that over to look at the Lions as a team. They're not being held back by their coach. I would say the opposite. I think they're being, a little bit better than maybe what their roster is. Obviously, 27th team in the NFL isn't like a huge compliment, but they started the NFL second worst as far as like our rankings went, and they have gradually moved up and stayed in the range that they're at right now. I think a lot of that has to do with a Dan Campbell who has brought the most out of a very, very poor roster. I'm actually really excited for what the Lions can be over the next couple of years because I think Dan Campbell is doing a really good job with that roster. It's interesting to look at because we are 4 weeks into the season, and realistically, one of these teams, if not multiple teams, are going to be outside of the top 8 and are going to be kind of viewed differently than they are right now in the NFL. I look at the Giants, Bears, and Dolphins as teams that really, really have a good chance of that. I'm curious what you look at as far as a team that you see, obviously maybe outside of the teams that I mentioned, a team that you think could very realistically be in that teens conversation as a team that is an average team in the NFL in that teens, 16 to 20 type of range.
Yeah, I'll hit on it real quick, but I'm going to retract it real quick too because I'm going to say it's Chicago Bears. But one of the statements that just came out about Matt Nagy is saying that Andy Dalton, when he's healthy, he's QB1.
Yeah.
Matt Nagy literally came out and said that about 2 days ago when I saw that spreading around on Twitter. And I think it's just not smart. It's not good football.
Does it make sense?
If you're fighting for your job, no, it doesn't make sense to me because I think that you have Justin Fields who can do everything and then some that an Andy Dalton can do. And I'm not sitting here saying that Andy Dalton can be the savior, but I'm saying that Andy Dalton can be a mediocre game manager at best. Justin Fields gives you that at least dynamic mobility type of, man, we have some excitement going forward with a good defense. This is a top 10 defensive team, and I'm being generous by giving you, not generous, what's the...
I don't think they're top 10, but I think you could argue, you could make that argument. You could make that argument.
So we'll say for that.
Generous, I think it's fair to say top 10.
That's fine then. So a top 10 defense with a borderline good, exciting quarterback to play and a formidable offense around you. Justin Fields is the move going forward. If you're fighting for your job, good God, I just feel like Matt Nagy's trying to get fired, man. So I'm going to say that I don't know what he's doing there. Justin Fields is clearly the answer for me going forward. If I'm going to look for a team to make that jump into the teens, man, I'm going to sound like a shocker here, but I'm looking for the New York Jets.
Okay.
I think Zach Wilson overall, looking at some of the passes he was able to make, there were times, I'm smiling because there were times in the press conference after the game that Mike Vrabel had to answer for some of his defensive coverages, and he had to answer a lot for Janoris Jenkins. They say Jack Rabbit overall had a really bad game against the Jets, and Vrabel came to his defense and saying, you can't expect a guy to guard that long of a route, that deep, when Corey Davis developed that route that it was
a corner route. He went across the field basically.
It was a corner route where Corey Davis started on the left side of the field, ran about a 15 to 18 yard corner route developing on the right side of the field, and then Zach Wilson sits there and just points up. He just does that. And Corey Davis does exactly that. And Janoris Jenkins is kind of caught in that mid-tier safety route where it's like, okay, I'm going to go with that. But Zach Wilson just throws an immaculate ball about 55 yards down the field, and it wasn't even to the point where Corey Davis was waiting on it. Corey Davis was having to go get that ball. You don't see that kind of thing. That's what the Zach Wilson factor was. If he is able to kind of harness that and control that and keep that momentum going, that can beat good quality teams. I'm not sitting here saying that the Titans kind of fell asleep and let the Jets beat them. The Titans were beat up. You know, they had lack of wide receiver weapons. They had Taylor Lewan go down for a few minutes there. They had some defensive weapons that weren't out on the field. Overall, I would say the Jets are rose to the occasion and beat a beat-down Titans team. I'm not going to sit here and write home about the Titans just being bad. The Jets are a team out of all of these bottom dwellers that might be able to make that jump.
And with that being said, let's move it over to the top half of our power rankings, right? And this is not an episode where we're going to talk about the middle ground. We do that a lot on this show. We're actually kind of changing it up this week, and we're just going to talk about the bottom and the top. And now it's time to talk about the top. Our top 8 is interchangeable, as we said. It is unanimous, as we said. And while we might not agree with the 1 to 8 exactly the way it is on your screen right now, we both agree that these 8 deserve to be there. And I want to hear it, all right? Let's take the top 3 out of the conversation. What is, from 4 to 8, the most likely to win the Super Bowl and the most likely to be far outside of the top 8, outside of the top 10, outside of the top 15, whatever you say? What's the team you expect to have the biggest fall, and what's the team that you expect to really win the Super Bowl? Let's put it that way.
Oh, man.
That's a tough one. I'm putting it on.
I would say it's not tough when it comes to that 4 through 8, who's going to win it all, because we have the Kansas City Chiefs
sitting at 5.
Yeah. And currently they are ranked 5th overall, but they are 4th in their division.
Yeah.
But
Isn't that wild?
But out of everybody in their division, they are atop this in our power rankings because everyone's the same. We know what the Kansas City Chiefs are.
Yeah.
We know what Patrick Mahomes is going to do. We know what Andy Reid is going to do. We know that this team is going to keep growing. They have these offensive weapons. They're going to grow. They're going to flourish. Yeah, they're going to have some hiccups here and there. Okay, they have a 2-2 start overall. God dang! I'll see you in November, and we'll see where this lies. If I'm gonna have to point to an imposter out of this, some people might be drawn to the Dallas Cowboys.
Really?
I'm gonna sit here and say no. It's the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
It's the Arizona Cardinals.
That would have been my answer.
I will sit here and say that right now, if the season were to end, and we're only at week 4, so it's not that far, Kyler Murray's MVP. Kyler Murray has been playing out of his mind, even better than what I ever saw the potential of him doing. Some of the ways that he's able to keep plays developing, able to utilize this offense overall, able to keep such a bland offensive scheme that their coach has going. You know, it's one of those things that just Kyler brings that overall X factor to this team and makes them good. And their defense is playing very, very good overall, above average to say the least. But I think that in a top-heavy division where you have the Rams, you have the 49ers, the Seahawks playing good ball, the Cardinals. I'm not going to say the Cardinals are bottom of their division, but even being middle tier, I don't know if it's enough overall against these top 8 teams.
Now,
give me an imposter, it's the Cardinals.
Yeah, now let's be fair. They are the top of their division statistically.
And they are the last undefeated team in football.
Isn't that wild?
So I expect some hate, honestly. I expect some hate as to why I'm so down on the Cardinals.
Yeah, it seems unfair to be talking about a power ranking show to look at the Cardinals as our 7th team in the NFL right now.
We're haters.
And to hate on them. But I don't expect hate in the sense that, like, I do expect people to somewhat agree that, like, at least from preseason notions, the Cardinals weren't supposed to be here. And the fact that they are, I think we all understand that Kyler Murray is a special talent. I think we all understand the defense got a lot better over the past year. The offensive line got a lot better over the past year. The wide receiver core got a lot better over the past year. So to say that they're at 7, I don't think is an absolute shocker. I don't think if you took me to the beginning of the year,
and they got better.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much I expect this team to continue this run because I don't believe in the offensive scheme. And I think at the end of the day, once you figure out the scheme, the talent only takes you so far. I think this is a scheme-driven league. I think that's why the 49ers have been able to be really good despite all the injuries. I think that's why the Rams have been able to be really good despite lackluster quarterback play before this season. It's a scheme-driven league a little bit. That's why the Patriots obviously, had Tom Brady, but you had talent plus scheme made you a dynasty for the past 20 years.
Scheme helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair thing to say. And, obviously, I think I'll take a step back from the Cardinals because I absolutely agree with everything you said. I don't really just want to mirror that.
Of course.
I want to look at a different team, and I do want to look at the Browns a little bit.
If you say the Browns.
I'm going to take a Browns. Yeah,
I'm
going to look at the Browns. Your third team in the NFL, my fifth. I'm looking at the Browns sitting at fourth overall, and I see a team that, on paper is super good.
You're saying that they're falling?
But on paper, struggled against a Vikings team, and I just mentioned scheme when we talked about the Cardinals. I'm wondering how far this scheme is going to take them with the Browns, because I will sit here and say right now, the Browns don't have the quarterback that the Cardinals have. The Browns don't have a guy that can absolutely put the team on their back the way the Cardinals do. I love Baker Mayfield. I'm not trying to take anything away from him.
He's not Kyler,
but he is not Kyler.
Kyler's a 1 through 5.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we both agree on that. Yeah. Kyler is a 1 through 5. Baker is a 1 through 12, a 1 through 13 type of guy, depending on the week, right? So it's just different. It just is. And I like the Browns wide receiver core when it's healthy, but it's not healthy right now. I like the Browns offensive line. It's genuinely the second best offensive line in the NFL behind the Bucs, and it's the most expensive offensive line.
Losing Wirfs
it's
hurt.
Good.
They just lost.
They just lost Wirfs. There's injuries there, right? And injuries happen. That is what it is. The defense is really, really good. That's why they were able to get an ugly win against the Vikings. And listen, I always say, a good team can win a game even when they don't play well, and that's what the Browns did this past week. But if they put together multiple outings where they don't play well, they're going to be outside of our top 5. They're going to be outside of our top 10. They didn't play well against the Vikings. They were able to win a game against the team they were supposed to beat, but it was 14-7, and it was certainly ugly. I have questions, and this is partially, I'll be totally honest, if it was a different name, if it was a different uniform, I might not be saying this. I might be able to look past it a little bit, but it is the Browns, and the Browns do have that history of letting us down. And obviously, we're talking about a Browns team, a Cleveland Browns team that's inside our top 5. That doesn't happen a lot historically in the NFL.
No, it doesn't.
So I think it's
they're
fair
above
to
the Chiefs right now. The Chiefs have already beat them technically.
Yeah, I think that's fair to bring up, right? I hope I'm not being a hater. I'm certainly not trying to be. I'm a huge fan of the Browns team as a whole, but the question was posed: what team could fall outside of the top 10? Could fall outside of the top 15, whatever it is. That's a team that I look at. We'll close it out there. I don't know if you have any thoughts that you want to bring up, another team that maybe from the mid-range that you really want to talk about. If not, we'll close it out there. I'll give you one last talk.
I'll say the Titans. You know, they had a bad week against the Jets, which I would say comes down to coaching. You just got to be really prepared for those kind of weeks where you don't really have that depth. You're missing out these wide receivers. You're missing out on that offensive line depth. And it really showed. It sucks overall to see that if you're missing your Julio Jones, your A.J. Brown, that you have to fall back on guys like a Chester Rogers and a Josh Reynolds who got hurt. Even Josh Reynolds got hurt. I'm sorry, Titans fans. It sucks to say that you lost to the Jets. Don't give up. You have a very, very easy division. You can get to the playoffs, and if you can just last to the playoffs, Derrick Henry plays in December and January.
That's a great point. Washington, I'll give a shout out to Washington. Won a really hard-fought game against the Falcons. Tyler Heineke, man, you're not an incredible quarterback from a technical standpoint.
But he fights.
But man, is he a winner.
He fights.
I mean, it is similar to how we looked at a Tim Tebow that one year where he was a starter, where it's like, man, everything statistically and from film study says you should suck, but God, you're just winning games.
When it matters, somehow on that 3rd and 14, you do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. You got to love the Washington I messed it up. Washington. Sorry about that. I think they are a really good team that is a little bit undervalued, obviously not having a substantial quarterback. Maybe if they aren't a team that goes far this year, they're a quarterback away, man.
Give them a
They
quarterback.
really are. They are a special quarterback away, and I like Heineke a whole lot. I think he should be a backup for a long time and have a chance to start. Maybe it is for Washington. Maybe
he's
it's
a
for another team.
Tyrod Taylor reminder of me.
Yeah.
He's a fighter.
Yeah, absolutely agree. But he's a guy should be in the league for a long time. It doesn't feel like he's going to be the guy, but man, it was fun to watch this past week. And I guess we'll close it out right there.
For sure.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really, really appreciate it. And we will be back next week with another Power Ranking show. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.
Sep.